There is a version of you that no one has ever met, a version untouched by insults, unaffected by pressure, and unshaken by life's storms. A version of you that doesn't react to negativity, doesn't collapse under stress, and doesn't let people control your emotions like switches they can turn on and off. Most people never meet that version because their mind is ruled by fear, impulse, and other people's behavior. But the strongest minds, the rare 1%, live by a different code. They follow laws that make them mentally bulletproof, emotionally unshakable, and spiritually untouchable. These laws come from psychology, ancient wisdom, and quantum physics, and once you understand them, the world around you can scream, shake, or burn, and yet you will remain calm, centered, and powerful. Today, you are not just learning information, you are entering a new mental reality. By the end of this video, you will walk differently, think differently, and react differently, because once you master these 12 laws, nothing outside of you will ever be able to break what is built inside of you again. 1. The law of internal origin. A strong mind begins with one foundational understanding. Nothing outside you has the power to control your state unless you open the door for it. This is what the law of internal origin means. That every emotional experience starts from within your own mind, not from the world around you. People often believe their sadness, stress, anger, or frustration comes directly from the situation they face. But in reality, the situation is neutral. Quantum physics teaches us that reality is not fixed. It changes based on the observer. This means the way you perceive something decides how it affects you. Your interpretation, not the event, creates your emotional reaction. Think about it. Two people can go through the exact same moment and one will collapse while the other stays calm. One person gets criticized and feels destroyed. Another hears the same criticism and calmly decides whether it is useful or not. The difference is not the situation. The difference is the inner world. Weak minds wait for life to become peaceful so they can finally feel okay. Strong minds create peace first, and then carry that peace with them no matter what happens. A strong person understands that emotions only grow when the mind feeds them. If someone insults you, the words themselves carry zero power. They are just vibrations in the air. Those words only build emotional damage when you take them in, replay them, believe them, and attach meaning to them. Strong minds refuse to give that power away. They understand that if an insult enters your heart, it is because you allowed it to enter. If someone tries to trigger you and you stay calm, it means you did not provide the inner doorway for their negativity. And this is where true emotional strength begins, with the realization that nothing can touch you unless it touches your mind first. Peace is not something strong minds wait for. They do not expect others to behave perfectly, life to be smooth, or the environment to always support them. Instead, they build their own center of calmness. They produce peace from within the same way the sun produces its own light. They do not beg for external approval. They do not depend on others to validate their worth. They do not allow someone's mood, attitude, or disrespect to shake them, because once you understand the law of internal origin, you realize that peace is not something you find. It is something you create, protect, and carry with you everywhere. A strong mind is like a fortress. External noise may surround it, but the inside stays untouched. And once you develop this level of inner strength, nothing, not insults, not stress, not fear, not disappointment, can affect you unless you decide to give it permission. This is the beginning of becoming unshakable. 2. The law of energy ownership. Strong minds operate with a simple but life-changing truth. Your energy is your most valuable currency, and every moment, every interaction, and every thought either strengthens it or drains it. Most people go through life without even realizing how much of their internal energy they are giving away to unnecessary arguments, negative people, pointless conflicts, and situations that do not deserve a single drop of their attention. But strong minds protect their energy with intelligence, discipline, and awareness because they understand that whatever controls your energy eventually controls your life. Quantum physics teaches that everything in the universe, thoughts, emotions, intentions, words, even silence, carries frequency. When two energies meet, they interact, exchange, and influence each other. This is why you instantly feel lighter around some people and heavy around others. Your mind is constantly absorbing, responding, and adjusting to the environment around you. Strong minds know this, so they choose carefully where they place their mental energy and who they allow into their emotional space. They do not entertain useless debates, they do not argue with people committed to misunderstanding them, and they do not waste time proving themselves to those who are determined not to understand. Why? Because every interaction is an energy transaction, and they refuse to make transactions that leave them drained. When someone tries to provoke them, they do not react emotionally. They have learned that reacting is the fastest way to hand over their power. Instead, they stay centered and grounded. They understand the difference between responding and being pulled into the emotional chaos of another person. Strong minds see negativity as a test of their discipline, not a threat to their identity. They know that if a stranger's words or someone's jealousy can shake them, it means they have not yet mastered their inner world, so they remain calm, not for the world's sake, but to protect their inner frequency. Energy ownership also means recognizing when something is lowering your vibration and stepping away instantly without guilt or hesitation. Strong minds do not force themselves to stay in toxic environments. They do not stay attached to people who drain them. They do not feel obligated to continue conversations that feel heavy or emotionally exhausting. They value peace more than approval. They understand that protecting their energy is not selfish. It is survival. If something disturbs their peace, they detach. If someone brings negativity, they distance. If a situation steals too much of their emotional strength, they walk away. They know exactly when to invest and when to withdraw. And here is the part most people never learn. Staying unaffected does not mean avoiding problems, nor does it mean being emotionless. It means being selective about what you give your energy to. Strong minds invest their energy into growth, discipline, mental clarity, purpose, learning, and actions that elevate them. They refuse to pour their energy into things that shrink them or weaken their spirit. They understand that energy flows where attention goes, so they use attention like a weapon, sharp, precise, and controlled. When you master the law of energy ownership, your emotional world becomes protected, your mind becomes clearer, your confidence becomes stronger, and you stop being disturbed by things that once triggered you. Nothing can affect you deeply because you no longer give your energy away freely. You choose where it goes, how it is used, and who receives it. And that level of control makes your mind unshakable. 3. The law of detached observation. Strong minds are not controlled by what happens around them because they have developed the rare ability to observe life without becoming emotionally tangled in every moment. This is the law of detached observation, the skill of watching events, people, and emotions from a mentally elevated position instead of drowning in them. Weak minds become trapped inside every situation. Strong minds step outside the situation so they can see it clearly. This one skill can transform your entire life. Quantum physics shows that when you observe a particle without interfering with it, you get a more accurate picture of how it behaves. But the moment you react to it, your reaction alters the outcome. Human emotions work the same way. When you immediately react to everything, someone's words, life's setbacks, small annoyances, you distort the situation with your own emotional chaos and you lose clarity. But when you observe first, you gain power. You separate the event from your feelings. You see the situation without the fog of impulse. Strong minds train themselves to become observers before becoming responders. Detached observation does not mean you don't care. It means you care intelligently. It means you do not let the initial shock, pain, or anger blind you. Instead of being pulled into the emotional storm, you rise above it like someone watching the rain from the top of a tall building. You see the chaos, but you are not inside it. This distance gives you time to think, time to understand, Time to choose the wisest response instead of reacting from fear, ego, or insecurity. Most emotional wounds come from reacting too quickly. Most peace is found in slowing down and observing. When something upsetting happens, weak minds feel attacked, and they instantly personalize everything. Strong minds pause. They look at the situation from multiple angles. They ask themselves, what is actually happening here, instead of letting their emotions control the narrative. This small pause, even a single breath, separates people who get controlled by life from those who control their life. Because once you observe a situation before reacting, you gain the ability to respond with intelligence instead of impulse. Detached observation also protects your energy. You stop giving emotional power to small, meaningless things. You stop responding to everything that tries to provoke you. You stop letting people rent space in your mind. You stop overthinking situations that don't deserve your attention. Instead, you choose what matters and what doesn't. You give your emotions only to things that are truly important. Everything else passes through you without leaving damage. People often mistake calmness for weakness, but the truth is the opposite. Anyone can react. Anyone can panic. Anyone can explode. But only a strong mind can stay calm enough to observe clearly. Calmness is not soft. It is a sign of control. And when you master the law of detached observation, life no longer feels overwhelming. You start seeing patterns. You see people's intentions more clearly. You understand situations faster. You stop being blindsided by emotions. You move with wisdom instead of chaos. In the end, detached observation gives you something that emotional people never experience. Clarity. Clarity in your judgment. Clarity in your relationships. Clarity in your decisions. Clarity in your purpose. And once you have clarity, nothing outside you can easily shake you, because you see the world not through emotion, but through awareness. 4. The law of response over reaction. Strong minds do not allow life to drag them around like puppets controlled by emotion. They live by one of the most important principles of mental mastery. The difference between reacting and responding decides whether you stay in control of your life or lose control of it. This is the law of response over reaction. The understanding that your first emotional impulse is rarely the truth, rarely the solution, and rarely the version of you that reflects your highest intelligence. Weak minds react instantly because immediate reaction feels comfortable and automatic. Strong minds, on the other hand, resist this impulse and choose to respond with intention. To understand this law, imagine the mind as a river. For most people, the river flows violently, full of emotional waves, rushing thoughts, and uncontrolled impulses. When something happens, they get swept away immediately, saying or doing things they later regret. But strong minds learn to slow that river. They learn to pause. They create a gap, a moment of mental stillness before the emotion takes control. In that stillness, they separate what they feel from what they choose to do. That tiny moment is the difference between chaos and clarity. Quantum physics teaches that a system behaves differently when observed with patience instead of force. Similarly, your mind behaves differently when you watch your emotion instead of obeying it. Reaction is an emotional reflex. Response is a conscious decision. Reaction is driven by old patterns, trauma, insecurity, and fear. Response is guided by awareness, logic, and wisdom. When you react, the situation controls you. When you respond, you control the situation. Weak minds react because reaction feels fast, easy, and familiar. They get angry immediately. They panic quickly. They assume without thinking. They jump to conclusions. They speak before their mind has processed the truth. And this impulsiveness becomes a cycle that ruins relationships, creates misunderstandings, damages opportunities, and steals peace. Emotional reactivity is the reason people stay stuck. They keep repeating old patterns because they never pause long enough to break them. Strong minds understand that power lies in the pause. They practice waiting before speaking, thinking before assuming, and understanding before acting. When someone tries to provoke them, they don't respond instantly because they know instant reactions are driven by ego, not intelligence. When faced with stress, they breathe consciously instead of letting panic take over. When confronted with conflict, they observe their thoughts and emotions before engaging. This gives them control, accuracy, and the ability to choose the best possible action instead of the fastest one. Responding over reacting also protects your emotional energy. You stop feeding situations that don't deserve your attention. You stop escalating unnecessary conflicts. You stop falling into traps set by people who want a reaction from you. You realize that not everything requires your emotion, your explanation, or your involvement. You develop the maturity to say less, feel more, and understand deeply before making any decision. People often believe strength is being loud, aggressive, quick, or forceful. But true strength is the ability to remain calm when everyone else is losing control. It is the ability to think clearly under pressure. It is the ability to pause even when your emotions demand action. That level of mental discipline is rare because it requires daily training. Watching your thoughts, understanding your triggers, slowing your reactions, and mastering your internal dialogue. When you master the law of response over reaction, you become harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to control, and harder to disturb. Your decisions improve. Your relationships stabilize. Your mind becomes clearer. Your life becomes calmer. And most importantly, you stop being a prisoner of emotion and become the architect of your behavior. Because at the end of the day, life is not determined by what happens to you. It is determined by how you choose to respond. 5. The law of meaning creation. Strong minds understand something that most people never even realize. Events don't hurt you. The meaning you attach to them does. Life is a constant flow of neutral moments, but the human mind assigns interpretations, labels, stories, and emotions to those moments. This is the law of meaning creation, the recognition that your interpretation shapes your experience, not the event itself. Quantum physics shows us that particles don't have a fixed state until the observer interacts with them. In the same way, situations don't have emotional value until you decide what they mean. Two people can face the same setback, the same heartbreak, the same failure, and yet their lives unfold completely differently afterwards. Why? Because one interprets it as the end, while the other interprets it as redirection. One sees loss, the other sees a lesson. One feels defeated, the other feels prepared. One falls apart, the other rises with new clarity. Reality doesn't choose the outcome, the mind does. Weak minds allow life to assign the meaning. If someone leaves them, they assume they are unworthy. If they fail, they think they're not capable. If they get criticized, they take it as a personal attack. They let emotion create the story, not logic. They allow pain to dictate their identity. They let one moment define their future. But strong minds refuse to give that kind of power away. They choose the meaning that empowers them, not the meaning that destroys them. When something painful happens, strong minds ask better questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of, "This person hurt me," they ask, "What truth is this revealing about who belongs in my life?" Instead of, "I failed," they ask, "What skill was I missing and how can I develop it?" They use meaning as a tool for growth, healing, clarity, and strength. They understand that every experience can either break them or build them depending on the meaning they attach to it. Meaning creation is not denial. It is not pretending things don't hurt. It is the mature ability to feel the pain, but choose a story that helps you move forward instead of keeping you stuck. It is the discipline to interpret events through the lens of wisdom rather than fear. It is the commitment to take control of your inner narrative so your mind doesn't become an enemy. When strong minds get rejected, they don't tell themselves, "I'm not enough." They tell themselves, "Something better is aligned for me." When they face failure, they don't say, "I'm done." They say, "This is where I begin again, wiser." When they lose someone, they don't say, "Life is unfair." They say, "Life is redirecting me toward people who match my growth." Meaning creation is powerful because the story you tell yourself becomes the lens through which you see the world. If your internal story is negative, everything will look like a threat. If your story is empowering, everything will look like an opportunity. Your mind takes whatever meaning you give it and turns it into your emotional reality. This is why strong minds are so hard to break. They can redefine any situation, reshape any narrative, and rebuild themselves from any setback. The greatest leaders, warriors, and thinkers in history all understood this law. They transformed pain into purpose, failure into strategy, and chaos into clarity. What destroyed others strengthened them because they assigned a different meaning. Your life will follow the same pattern. The meaning you create becomes the life you live. If you let events define you, you will always feel powerless. But if you define the meaning of every event, you become unstoppable. When you master the law of meaning creation, life no longer feels like it is happening to you. It starts feeling like it is happening for you. Every challenge becomes preparation. Every setback becomes direction. Every loss becomes evolution. And in that mindset, nothing can affect you deeply because you control the meaning, and the meaning controls your reality. 6. The law of emotional transmutation. Strong minds possess a skill that separates them from the average person. They know how to transform their emotions instead of being controlled by them. This is the law of emotional transmutation, the ability to take any emotional energy, even the painful kind, and convert it into something useful, productive, and empowering. Most people believe emotions are things that happen to them, but strong minds understand that emotions are raw energy, and energy can always be reshaped. Quantum physics teaches that energy cannot be destroyed. It can only change form. The same rule applies to your emotional life. Anger does not disappear by suppressing it. Fear does not vanish by pretending it isn't there. Sadness does not fade by avoiding it. These emotions must be transformed. Weak minds let negative emotions trap them. Strong minds redirect that energy into something that fuels their growth. When a strong mind feels anger, they don't explode, lash out, or let it consume their peace. They step back and ask, what is this anger trying to tell me? What boundary was crossed? What standard needs to be strengthened? What truth am I ignoring? Instead of letting anger turn into destruction, they channel it into discipline, self-respect, and decisive action. Anger becomes fuel for realignment. When they feel fear, they don't freeze. They don't run. They don't let fear paint worst-case scenarios in their mind. They examine the fear carefully. They ask themselves, is this fear protecting me or limiting me? Is it a warning or an illusion? Is it telling me to slow down or telling me I'm stepping into growth? Strong minds turn fear into strategy, awareness, and preparation. Fear becomes a compass that points toward the next level of growth. When sadness enters their life, they don't drown in it. They don't pretend it doesn't hurt. They understand sadness is not a weakness. It is information. It shows what matters. It reveals where healing is needed. It highlights the depth of their emotional world. Strong minds sit with sadness long enough to extract its truth. Then they turn it into understanding, compassion, and emotional maturity. Sadness becomes depth. Most people believe negative emotions are enemies. Strong minds know the opposite. Your negative emotions are messages. They are signals. They are energy trying to move. They only become destructive when ignored or misused. Once you know how to read them, they become tools. Transmutation also means refusing to let emotional energy stay stagnant. When you suppress emotions, they grow in the dark and eventually turn into anxiety, resentment, or internal chaos. Strong minds allow energy to flow in the right direction. They give themselves time and space to feel the emotion, understand it, and then reshape it into something that supports their journey. This is why strong minds often come back stronger after difficult experiences. They use emotional pain as the raw material for transformation. The world teaches people to avoid emotions, especially the painful ones. Strong minds do the opposite. They embrace emotions with awareness because they know every emotion contains power. If they lost someone, They use that pain to become more appreciative of life. If someone betrayed them, they use that hurt to develop better judgment. If they fail, they use the disappointment to sharpen their strategy. Emotional transmutation is the art of turning emotional chaos into inner strength. Strong minds also understand that emotional energy is contagious. If they stay bitter, they produce bitterness. If they hold on to anger, it poisons their decisions. If they cling to fear, it blocks their opportunities. So they consciously choose a higher emotional state, not by forcing happiness, but by transforming whatever emotion they are experiencing into something that elevates them. This is not pretending to be strong. This is strength. When you master the law of emotional transmutation, you stop fearing emotions. You stop hiding from yourself. You start seeing every emotional wave as a source of power, not a threat. You no longer break under pressure. You rise through it. You no longer get ruled by emotions. You become the one who directs them. And in that state of mastery, nothing can truly affect you because every emotional energy, even the painful ones, becomes fuel for your evolution. 7. The law of quiet power. Strong minds understand that the greatest power a human can possess is the power that is not constantly shown, announced, or broadcasted. This is the law of quiet power. The ability to move through life with a deep internal strength that does not depend on noise, attention, or validation. Quiet power is not silence out of fear. It is silence out of confidence. It is the silence of someone who knows exactly who they are, where they are going, and what they are capable of, without needing the world to clap for them or acknowledge them at every step. Most people feel uncomfortable when they are not talking about themselves, their plans, their dreams, or their struggles. Their mind seeks reassurance from others. They need someone to tell them they're doing well. They need someone to approve their decisions. They need the world to recognize their effort. But this constant need for external validation weakens the mind. It makes people emotionally dependent, easily shaken by opinions, and vulnerable to manipulation. Strong minds break out of this dependence by choosing silence intentionally. Their silence is not weakness. It is protection. Quiet power begins with understanding that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. When you keep your goals private, no one can sabotage them. When you keep your healing private, no one can interfere with it. When you keep your struggles private, no one can use them against you. Noise invites attention. Attention invites opinions. Opinions invite doubt. Quiet power removes that entire chain. It frees you from the emotional weight of other people's judgments, expectations, and misunderstandings. When you move silently, you move freely. Strong minds also know that silence gives them an enormous strategic advantage. When people don't know your next move, they cannot block it, influence it, or slow it down. When people don't know your weaknesses, they cannot attack them. When people don't know what you're working on, they cannot discourage you or drain your motivation. Quiet power forces others to guess while you stay 3 steps ahead. Noise exposes your strategy. Silence protects it. But quiet power is not only about hiding your plans. It is also about strengthening your mind. When you remain silent, you hear your thoughts more clearly. You hear your intuition without distortion. You see situations without emotional noise. You notice the motives behind people's behavior. You develop emotional independence because you are no longer shaped by external voices. You learn to trust yourself. And self-trust is one of the highest forms of inner strength. People with quiet power do not respond to every provocation. They do not react to every insult. They do not feel the need to correct every misunderstanding. They understand that emotional reactivity is how people lose power. When someone tries to provoke them, they stay calm, not because they are weak, but because they refuse to give away their energy. Quiet power creates emotional distance, the kind of distance that keeps your mind calm and your judgment sharp. You no longer feel the urge to defend yourself constantly because you know truth doesn't need noise. Quiet power also helps you build stronger relationships with yourself. When you move silently, you learn to enjoy your own company. You stop seeking validation from others. You stop depending on applause to feel valuable. You become grounded in your own identity instead of the shifting opinions of those around you. This makes you emotionally unshakable because your self-worth is not attached to external approval. It is rooted in your internal foundation. Many people believe that being loud, aggressive, or constantly expressive is a sign of confidence. But true confidence is the opposite. True confidence is the ability to stay silent while you prepare, while you learn, while you grow, and while you build yourself quietly. It is knowing you don't need to prove anything to anyone. It is knowing your progress does not require public display. It is knowing your strength does not depend on recognition. Quiet power is self-assurance in its purest form. When you master the law of quiet power, you become unpredictable, emotionally stable, mentally sharp, and spiritually centered. You move with intention instead of impulse. You grow without interference. You win without announcing. You evolve without broadcasting. And most importantly, you become unaffected by noise, chaos, opinions, and distractions, because your power comes from within, not from the world outside. 8. The law of non-attachment. Strong minds understand one of the most liberating truths of human existence. Suffering doesn't come from what happens. Suffering comes from attachment to how you want things to happen. This is the law of non-attachment, the ability to move through life with clarity, strength, and emotional freedom, because you are not chained to any single outcome, expectation, or version of reality. Weak minds cling tightly to people, to plans, to routines, to validation, to predictable results. They attach their happiness to specific outcomes, and when life moves in a different direction, they feel lost, broken, and confused. Strong minds, however, flow with life instead of fighting it. Non-attachment doesn't mean not caring. It means caring without losing yourself. It means loving without becoming dependent. It means working hard without allowing the result to control your self-esteem. It means having dreams and goals while still being flexible enough to adapt when reality shifts. Attachment creates emotional rigidity, and rigidity breaks under pressure. Non-attachment creates emotional flexibility, and flexibility bends, adjusts, and survives. Quantum physics teaches that reality does not exist in one fixed state. It exists in probabilities, shifting constantly based on energy, intention, and alignment. When you cling to one specific outcome, you limit yourself to a single possibility, even though the universe may be guiding you towards something far greater. Strong minds know that attachment blinds you to better paths, better people, better opportunities, and better timing. Non-attachment opens your vision and keeps your emotional world calm even when life surprises you. Weak minds try to control everything. They panic when plans change. They obsess over how things should be. They fear uncertainty because they feel powerless without predictability. But strong minds embrace uncertainty because they understand that life is fluid. They know the world will not always match their expectations, and they prepare their mind to adapt instead of break. They release the need for everything to go their way, and instead focus on their ability to respond to whatever comes. Non-attachment also protects your emotional energy. When you are attached to people's approval, their slightest rejection destroys you. When you are attached to outcomes, the smallest setback crushes your confidence. When you are attached to routines, unexpected changes create anxiety. When you are attached to control, unpredictable moments trigger panic. Strong minds break these chains by realizing something simple but powerful. You can give effort, love, and commitment without becoming emotionally dependent on the result. Instead of expecting people to always behave perfectly, they understand human behavior is unpredictable. Instead of expecting life to be smooth, they accept chaos as part of the journey. Instead of expecting success to arrive exactly when they want it, they trust their consistency and timing. Non-attachment makes strong minds unshakable because their peace does not rise and fall with every external shift. Their peace is stable, independent, and internally sourced. Strong minds also practice non-attachment in relationships. They love deeply, but not desperately. They give care, but not their entire identity. They remain present, but not emotionally enslaved. They do not cling to people out of fear of being alone. They do not hold on to toxic relationships because of emotional dependence. They do not chase love out of emptiness. They stay by people who match their growth and distance themselves from those who disrupt their peace. Their love is strong because it is free, not forced. Non-attachment also applies to identity. Many people become attached to their old self, old beliefs, old routines, or old fears, and this attachment stops them from evolving. Strong minds release old versions of themselves without guilt. They understand that growth requires shedding skins, letting go of identities that no longer fit, and allowing new versions of themselves to emerge without resistance. To truly master non-attachment, you must train your mind to see life like a river. You cannot control the river's flow, but you can choose how you move through it. If you cling to rocks, you suffer. If you relax, float, and navigate with awareness, the river carries you exactly where you need to be. Non-attachment does not make you passive. It makes you wise. You still act, you still plan, you still strive, but you don't collapse when the path changes. You don't lose yourself when life redirects you. You don't fall apart when expectations fail. You adjust, realign, and continue forward with inner calm. When you master the law of non-attachment, you become emotionally untouchable. You stop forcing life. You stop chasing what isn't meant for you. You stop holding on to things that drain you. You start trusting timing, trusting flow, trusting your inner strength, and trusting that what is meant for you will always find its way, without you having to cling, beg, or break yourself. Non-attachment gives you a level of freedom that makes your mind unshakable and your heart impossible to disturb. 9. The law of frequency selection. Strong minds understand something most people move through life completely blind to. Every person, every environment, every conversation, and every thought carries a frequency, and that frequency either lifts you higher or pulls you down. This is the law of frequency selection, the ability to consciously choose which energies you allow into your life and which you walk away from. Weak minds live reactively, absorbing whatever energy life throws at them. Strong minds live intentionally, choosing what enters their mental space with the same care a guardian would use to protect a sacred temple. To understand frequency selection, imagine your mind as a finely tuned instrument. If you place a clean, well-maintained instrument in a noisy room full of distortion, chaos, and negativity, it cannot produce clear sound. The environment ruins the clarity. Similarly, if you place your mind, your most powerful instrument, in environments filled with toxic people, shallow conversations, constant drama, gossip, jealousy, or emotional chaos, your inner world becomes disturbed, even if you did nothing wrong. Strong minds refuse to allow this. They choose spaces, people, and energies that support their peace, instead of sabotaging it. Quantum physics teaches that everything vibrates. Atoms vibrate, light vibrates, thoughts vibrate, emotions vibrate, and consciousness itself vibrates. When two frequencies come near each other, they begin to synchronize. This means you become like what you surround yourself with, whether you want to or not. If you stay around negativity long enough, you start thinking negatively. If you stay around lazy people long enough, your motivation begins to die. If you stay around complainers, your mind learns to complain. If you stay around chaotic minds, your peace slowly fades away. Strong minds protect themselves by being careful with every frequency they absorb. Weak minds think they can stay unaffected in every environment. They believe they can spend hours with toxic people without becoming like them. They think they can listen to negativity without internalizing it. They assume they can be surrounded by chaos without losing their balance, but energy doesn't work like that. Even silence absorbs vibration. Even presence absorbs intention. Even stillness absorbs atmosphere. Strong minds understand this invisible influence and choose their environment with extreme precision. Selecting frequency also means eliminating anything that lowers your inner vibration. Strong minds don't hesitate to distance themselves from people who drain them emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. They walk away from relationships that feel heavy. They avoid conversations that feel poisonous. They leave environments where their intuition feels tight or uncomfortable. They refuse to stay in spaces where their energy is constantly being attacked, tested, or undervalued, and they don't feel guilty for protecting their peace, because peace is their fuel. Strong minds are also careful with the content they consume. They know that what you watch, read, listen to, and think about becomes part of your mental frequency. They avoid content that fills them with fear, anger, confusion, or distraction. They choose information that sharpens their mind, strengthens their discipline, and raises their vibration. They understand that mental nutrition is just as important as physical nutrition. Frequency selection also applies to goals. If your goal is growth, you cannot keep surrounding yourself with people who fear growth. If your goal is success, you cannot keep spending time with people who complain about success. If your goal is emotional maturity, you cannot keep engaging with people who thrive on drama. A strong mind is not shaped by accident. It is shaped by intentional choices, especially the choice of who and what you give your time, energy, and emotional exposure to. Strong minds also apply this law to themselves. They monitor their own frequency. When their energy feels low, they pause instead of ignoring it. When their thoughts become negative, they realign instead of feeding the negativity. When their emotions feel heavy, they reconnect with practices that restore clarity, solitude, silence, breath, discipline, or reflection. They understand that protecting your own frequency is an inside job, not something the world will do for you. When you master the law of frequency selection, you no longer tolerate environments, people, habits, or energies that disrupt your inner stability. You begin to attract calmer people, clearer opportunities, healthier relationships, and stronger alignment because your frequency rises. And when your frequency rises, life begins to reorganize around that vibration. You become harder to disturb, harder to drain, and harder to manipulate because you are no longer reacting to everything around you. You are consciously selecting what deserves access to your energy. This is how strong minds remain untouched by chaos. They don't wait for the world to be peaceful. They create peace by choosing the frequencies that match the person they are becoming. And once you master this law, nothing outside you can dictate your inner state, because you decide what enters your world and what stays out. 10. The law of self-sovereignty. Strong minds live by one of the most important principles of inner power. You are the ruler of your internal world, and nothing outside you can govern your thoughts, your emotions, or your choices unless you hand over that authority. This is the law of self-sovereignty, the understanding that true freedom, true strength, and true stability come from taking full responsibility for your inner state. Weak minds blame. Strong minds claim. Weak minds give their power away. Strong minds take their power back. Most people spend their entire lives believing that other people, external events, unpredictable circumstances, or distant forces are controlling how they feel. They say things like, "He made me angry," "She ruined my day," "Life is stressing me out," "People make me unhappy," without realizing that every time they speak like this, they surrender a piece of their personal power. When you believe the world controls your emotions, you become emotionally fragile, easily disturbed, and quick to fall apart. Strong minds refuse to live this way. They choose to become sovereign over themselves, meaning they own their thoughts, they own their decisions, and they own their emotional reactions. Self-sovereignty does not mean ignoring pain or pretending that difficulties don't affect you. It means you acknowledge the pain, but still choose your response. It means understanding that while you cannot always control what happens, you can always control how you internalize it. It means you stop giving away emotional power to people who don't deserve it. It means you stop letting circumstances dictate your mindset. It means you stop waiting for life to become perfect before you allow yourself to feel at peace. Peace becomes a decision, not a reward. Quantum physics teaches that the observer influences the outcome. In the same way, your perspective influences your emotional reality. Two people can experience the same challenge, and one becomes bitter while the other becomes stronger. The event is the same. The difference is sovereignty. Weak minds allow external forces to shape their internal world. Strong minds shape their internal world first, and then meet the external world with clarity, stability, and control. Self-sovereignty also means you stop waiting for other people to fix your problems. You stop expecting others to rescue you, apologize to you, validate you, or guarantee your happiness. You understand that depending on others for emotional regulation is the fastest way to stay weak. Strong minds take accountability for their healing, their growth, their discipline, and their direction. They know no one is coming to save them, and that realization becomes the beginning of their true power. When someone disrespects them, they don't collapse. They decide whether that person still deserves access to their life. When someone lies to them, they don't waste energy trying to change the liar. They realign their boundaries. When someone tries to provoke them, they don't let the provocation dictate their behavior. They choose how to respond based on logic, not emotional pressure. This is self-sovereignty, the ability to govern your internal world regardless of external instability. Self-sovereignty also transforms how you see responsibility. Instead of blaming circumstances, upbringing, people, or luck, strong minds ask, "What can I do now?" They take ownership of their habits, their focus, their reactions, and their patterns. They understand that every moment is a chance to either rise or remain the same, and that choosing growth requires accepting full responsibility for their state of mind. This level of ownership is rare because it forces you to face your weaknesses honestly. But only through honesty can you build strength that doesn't collapse under pressure. When you practice self-sovereignty, you no longer need approval, praise, or validation to feel stable. You no longer fear judgment because your self-worth is sourced internally, not externally. You no longer depend on other people's consistency because you have built your own. You no longer lose your center when people disappoint you because you do not rely on them for emotional grounding. Your emotional world becomes anchored in you, not in people, not in praise, not in outcomes. And here is the deeper truth. When your inner state is self-governed, you become unshakable. You can face chaos without losing clarity. You can experience pain without losing direction. You can face betrayal without losing self-respect. You can encounter uncertainty without losing stability. Nothing outside you can truly affect you because your inner power is not up for negotiation. You own it. You protect it. You rule it. When you master the law of self-sovereignty, you stop living as a passenger in your own mind. You become the driver. You become the authority. You become the leader of your internal kingdom. And once you reach this level of mastery, life no longer feels overwhelming because you are no longer trying to control the world. You are controlling yourself. And a person who controls themselves becomes a force that nothing in the world can break. 11. The law of present moment awareness. Strong minds understand a truth that most people spend their entire lives ignoring. The only place your power truly exists is in the present moment, not in the past that has already slipped away, not in the future that has not yet arrived. Your power exists right here, in this single breath, in this single moment, in this precise point of awareness. This is the law of present moment awareness, the ability to anchor your mind so deeply into the now that fear loses its grip, regret loses its weight, and overthinking loses its power to disturb your peace. Most people suffer not because their present moment is painful, but because they are mentally trapped somewhere else. Their body is here, but their mind is replaying old memories, reliving old wounds, repeating old mistakes, or their mind is worrying about what might happen tomorrow, next week, or next year. They are carrying the past like a burden and projecting the future like a threat. Because of this, they never actually experience life as it is, only as their mind imagines it. Strong minds break this cycle by learning to pull themselves back into the present moment again and again, training their awareness like a muscle. The past is a memory. The future is a possibility. The present is the only reality. Quantum physics proves that the act of observation determines what becomes real. If your attention stays in the past, you recreate the past inside your mind. If your attention jumps ahead into the future, you create imaginary scenarios that have not even happened. But if your attention stays in the now, your mind becomes aligned with truth. Not illusions, not fears, not old stories, not imagined outcomes. The now is the only place your mind can function with clarity. Present moment awareness also protects you from emotional chaos. Anxiety comes from imagining a painful future. Regret comes from reliving a painful past. Stress comes from trying to control things outside your immediate reach. When you discipline yourself to stay in the present, all of these emotional disturbances lose their power. You stop fighting ghosts from your past. You stop fearing shadows from your future. You stop overthinking what you cannot control. Your attention becomes grounded, your emotions become centered, and your mind becomes still. Weak minds allow distractions to scatter their awareness. They think about 10 different things at once and end up overwhelmed by all of them. They multitask, overstimulate themselves, and drown in mental noise. They worry about what others think, replay conversations, anticipate problems, and imagine disasters that do not exist. Their mind is like a storm, loud, unpredictable, and exhausting. Strong minds, on the other hand, quiet the storm by redirecting their awareness back to the present over and over. They focus on one thing at a time. They give their full attention to the task in front of them. They immerse themselves in the moment until the noise fades away. Present moment awareness also enhances decision-making. When your mind is present, you can see situations clearly. You can sense people's intentions accurately. You can understand your emotions without being overwhelmed. You can choose responses instead of reacting impulsively. When you are present, you are not dragged by old habits or fears. You are not clouded by assumptions or anxiety. You can observe, analyze, and respond with precision, because your mind is operating from a state of clarity instead of confusion. Strong minds also use present awareness to strengthen their emotional resilience. When something painful happens, they do not immediately attach a story to it. They do not jump into panic or assumptions. They stay present with the sensation of the moment. They breathe. They observe. They ground themselves. This keeps the emotion from becoming a spiral. Instead of letting one difficult moment turn into hours of mental suffering, they contain the pain within the present moment, and this makes it manageable. Most emotional pain becomes unbearable only when you stretch it into the past or extend it into the future. Present awareness prevents this. Being anchored in the now also transforms how you experience life. You begin to notice small details you never saw before. The way the air feels, the tone of someone's voice, the intention behind a word, the feelings inside your body, the patterns in your thoughts. You develop a deeper connection with yourself and the world around you, and this depth gives you inner stability that cannot be shaken by temporary noise or external chaos. One of the greatest strengths of present moment awareness is that it disconnects you from the illusions of the mind. The mind constantly tries to pull you into stories. What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? What if things go wrong? What if someone hates me? What if the past repeats itself? None of these fears exist in the present moment. They exist only in imagination. When you bring your awareness back to the now, the mind's illusions fade. Fear fades, uncertainty fades, overthinking fades, only clarity remains. This law also teaches you to focus on what is within your immediate control. You cannot control the past because it already happened. You cannot control the future because it hasn't arrived. But you can control your actions, your thoughts, your reactions, your breath, your choices, right now. The more you master the now, the more powerful you become. You stop relying on circumstances and start relying on your presence of mind. When you fully master the law of present moment awareness, nothing can disturb you for long. Stress becomes temporary, fear becomes manageable, pain becomes information, challenges become opportunities, and your mind becomes still, strong, and steady like a mountain. You become unaffected not because you avoid life, but because you are fully awake in the only place where life actually happens, the present moment. 12. The law of inner stillness. Strong minds understand a truth that only a few people on this planet ever realize. Stillness is not the absence of movement. Stillness is the presence of power. This is the law of inner stillness, the ability to create a calm, stable, unshakable inner world no matter what is happening on the outside. Most people live as if they are constantly being dragged by noise, their minds running, their emotions racing, their thoughts colliding. Strong minds break this cycle by mastering the art of inner quiet, a state where the mind becomes clear, grounded, and impossible to disturb. Most people think the mind has to be loud to be productive. They think thinking more means solving more. They think worrying means they're being responsible. They think internal chaos is normal. But this constant noise is what keeps them confused, reactive, stressed, and emotionally fragile. Strong minds do the opposite. They learn to quiet the internal storm so they can see life clearly. They learn to pause before acting, breathe before speaking, and observe before reacting. Inner stillness becomes their foundation, their anchor, their hidden source of strength. Quantum physics teaches us that particles behave differently when they are observed with stability instead of turbulence. Your mind works the same way. When it is chaotic, it misinterprets situations, exaggerates problems, and amplifies fears. When it is still, everything becomes clear. You can see intentions. You can sense truth. You can feel your intuition guiding you. You can distinguish between emotion and reality. Stillness opens mental channels that noise keeps blocked. Inner stillness also gives you emotional power. When you learn to sit with yourself in silence, without distractions, without screens, without people, without escaping into noise, you begin to understand your own mind. You see your patterns. You hear your inner dialogue. You recognize your emotional triggers. You gain access to the deeper layers of your consciousness that normally stay hidden beneath constant stimulation. This awareness helps you stay calm when the world becomes chaotic because your inner world is already trained to remain steady. Weak minds fear silence because silence exposes the truth. In silence, you confront your insecurities, your desires, your hidden fears, and the uncomfortable parts of yourself. That's why many people avoid quiet moments. They don't want to meet their real self. Strong minds do the opposite. They go inward, they listen, they reflect. They clean their inner space. They resolve emotional knots. They face reality without running from it. This is why strong minds grow, because stillness gives them clarity, and clarity gives them direction. Inner stillness is not passive. It is active strength. It is the calmness of a warrior who stands still not because there is no battle, but because they know their power. Stillness allows you to think with precision, feel with awareness, and act with intention. When you are still inside, conflict does not knock you off balance, insults do not pierce you, pressure does not break you, unexpected events do not shake your core. You become like a deep ocean. The surface may move, but the depth remains untouched. Stillness also sharpens your intuition. When the mind becomes quiet, you begin to sense subtle truths you could never see through noise. You understand people's real intentions. You feel when something is wrong. You sense when something is right. You notice signs, synchronicities, patterns, and signals that others miss. Clarity becomes your natural state. Decisions become easier. Your confidence grows not because life becomes easier, but because you become more aligned with yourself. Inner stillness also strengthens your resilience. Life becomes unpredictable. Plans change. People leave. Opportunities shift. Challenges appear without warning. Without inner calm, these moments feel like earthquakes. But with inner stillness, you remain steady no matter how hard life shakes you. You can adjust without losing yourself. You can rebuild without panicking. You can respond without collapsing. Stillness gives you the emotional muscle to remain grounded when others fall apart. Another profound part of this law is the ability to detach from mental noise. Most people don't realize that thoughts are not commands, they are suggestions. Not every thought deserves attention. Not every fear deserves belief. Not every emotion deserves reaction. Inner stillness gives you the ability to observe your thoughts like clouds passing by, without chasing them, without attaching to them, without letting them dictate your reality. The thought comes, the thought goes, but your center remains unmoved. This is the beginning of mental freedom. Inner stillness also deepens your connection to life. When you are present and calm, you begin to feel life more vividly. You hear the quiet details. You notice beauty you once overlooked. You feel gratitude more easily. You experience moments fully instead of rushing through them. You build a deeper relationship with yourself and with the world around you. This depth becomes your shield against emotional disturbances. Life feels less like a battlefield and more like a journey you are consciously navigating. And herein lies the true essence of this law. Stillness is not an escape from life. It is how you face life with strength, wisdom, and clarity. It is how you rise above impulsiveness. It is how you stop being controlled by external chaos. It is how you build a mind that does not crumble under pressure. When your inner world is still, nothing outside can shake your peace. When you master the law of inner stillness, you become a person who lives with depth, clarity, and unshakable strength. You no longer respond from fear. You no longer react from chaos. You no longer lose yourself in noise. You move with intention, speak with power, think with clarity, and live with a calmness that others cannot understand. You become unaffected, not because life becomes easy, but because your inner stillness becomes stronger than any storm outside. When you look back at all 12 laws, you begin to see something most people never realize. Strength is not built in the outside world. It is built in the invisible space within you, the space where thoughts form, emotions arise, judgments are made, and choices are decided. Every law you've learned leads to one truth. The world doesn't make you weak. The world only reveals the weaknesses you haven't yet mastered. And once you understand this, you no longer fear challenges, situations, or people, because you recognize that your inner world is the only battlefield that truly matters. The law of internal origin teaches you that nothing enters your mind without permission. The law of energy ownership shows you that your emotional currency is sacred and must be protected. The law of detached observation gives you clarity before you act. The law of response over reaction keeps your mind in control, even when emotions rise. The law of meaning creation shows you that life becomes whatever meaning you give it. The law of emotional transmutation transforms pain into power and fear into fuel. The law of quiet power teaches you that silence is strategy and privacy is protection. The law of non-attachment frees you from expectations so you can move through life with calmness instead of fear. The law of frequency. Selection helps you surround yourself with energy that lifts you higher. The law of self-sovereignty returns control of your inner world back to you. The law of present moment. Awareness anchors your mind in the only place where life actually happens. And the law of inner stillness gives you the mental quietness needed to stay strong even when life becomes loud. Together, these laws form a foundation so stable that external chaos cannot shake it. They build a mind that is not easily provoked, not easily manipulated, not easily drained, and not easily defeated. They build a mind that stops reacting to every shadow, every insult, every disappointment, and every unpredictable moment. They build a person who moves through life with clarity, confidence, intention, and emotional independence. And when you reach this level of mental mastery, you stop being controlled by circumstances. You start shaping them. Nothing can affect you deeply when your peace comes from within. Nothing can break you when your identity is not attached to outcomes. Nothing can disturb you when your mind is anchored in awareness. Nothing can weaken you when you decide what meaning every experience will carry. Nothing can drain you when you choose the frequencies you allow into your life. And nothing can overpower you when you rule your inner world with calmness, discipline, and self-respect. The truth is simple. The world does not need to become easier. You need to become stronger. And once you strengthen your inner world using these 12 laws, the storms of life will no longer feel like threats. They will feel like weather, passing, temporary and powerless compared to the depth of your stillness. You will not only survive life, you will master it. You will not only endure challenges, you will grow from them. You will not only rise above negativity, you will become immune to it. You will not only protect your peace, you will live from it. Because at the end of the journey, you will realize that the strongest version of you was never created by comfort. It was created by understanding, discipline, and awareness. It was created by the mind you built, not the world you escaped. And once you reach this state of inner mastery, nothing can affect you ever again.